Hi there. Welcome to Anonymity 1D. My name is Dave. I have type 1 diabetes.
My name is Susan. My daughter Mia has type 1 diabetes.
And my name is Lisa. I am a diabetes educator and also have type 1. In the previous video, we discussed the effect of glycemic index on blood sugars. In this video, we continue our conversation and talk about how fat and protein can affect our blood sugar and ways to manage that. This is useful for foods like pizza. Please remember that this is for informational purposes only and is not meant to replace your doctor or care team.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Let us know in the comments what else you would like to hear about. Thank you.
Let's switch gears and talk about fat and protein. We know that when we eat any meal, it is not just carbs. Usually there is some fat or protein or both. The meal composition can affect the blood sugar pattern quite a bit. Pizza is a good example. But not just pizza. Sometimes meals with just protein can also cause a blood sugar rise.
We had pizza last night and spent a good part of the night trying to bring Mia's sugars back in range. We have tried a few different things and not quite figured it out. Learning why it happens and how to manage it will definitely help.
It's interesting that you say that protein can cause blood sugar to rise too. Now that I think about it, when I have steak for dinner, sometimes my sugar starts to rise well into the night.
Let's look at how protein can affect our blood sugar. Do you remember we spoke about how our body breaks down protein? Just like how carbs are broken down to glucose, protein is broken down to amino acids. When we eat protein like the egg in this example, our body breaks it down to amino acids. Unlike glucose, there are different kinds of amino acids, all of which are important for our body. As a part of digesting protein, glucagon is released. This is something that happens to everyone, whether you have type 1 or not. Just like the glucagon that we use for low blood sugars, the glucagon our body makes also causes blood sugar to rise. Now, if the protein load is heavy, some of the amino acids get converted to glucose. The whole process, breaking down protein to amino acids, releasing glucagon, converting amino acids to make glucose can take 2 to 3 hours, which is why you don't see that spike until hours after your meal.
So, that is why my blood sugar starts rising well into the night after a steak dinner?
That's right. One group found that 40 grams of protein, which is about 6 eggs or 2 chicken breasts, can behave like 20 grams of carbs. But the blood sugar starts rising 1.5 to 2 hours after the meal and peaks 5 hours after. Now, if it is a combined carb and protein meal, then the blood sugar can start rising right after because of the carbs, but stay high for 3 to 4 hours.
How do I work on that?
There is no standard recommendation for this because for a protein-only meal, we don't usually dose as there are no carbs. But let's say you notice your blood sugar starts going up 2 hours later. Then, you may need to take some insulin about 1.5 hours after your meal to prevent that rise. Talk to your team about what you're observing. They can help you with options.
Is that why pizza also causes high sugars later?
Yes, but that is only one part of the story. Pizza has fat which also affects our blood sugars. This is important to understand because unlike protein, we usually don't eat fat by itself, but in combination with carbs. Let's look at the effect that fat has. Pizza is a combination of carbs, protein, and fat. As we digest it, the carbs are broken down to glucose, and the fat gets broken down to fatty acids. Fat tends to slow down food absorption, so the glucose is absorbed a lot slower, sometimes causing a slower blood sugar rise. These fatty acids, by nature, tend to cause insulin resistance. This happens in everyone, whether you have type 1 or not. With the delayed absorption and the insulin resistance together, fat can blunt the initial rise in blood sugars and cause it to stay high for up to 5 hours after. So, with pizza, as the carbs are broken down, you get an initial rise in blood sugar. Fat slowing down the carb absorption and the insulin resistance that happens as fat is digested can cause a second blood sugar spike 3 to 5 hours later. Now, depending on the toppings on your pizza, there may be a good amount of protein too. The effect of fat and protein together can be additive, causing a larger and longer blood sugar spike than either on them on their own.
What tips can we use to dose for pizza?
You have to remember two things. The addition of fat or protein or both seems to need more insulin than what you would use for carbs alone. One suggestion is to start with 125 to 150% of the usual insulin dose. The second is that the blood sugar can stay high for 3 to 5 hours after a meal, so you may need to modify how the dose is given. The dosing options are the same as we had for low GI foods. Let's go over them again. On insulin injections, you can split the mealtime dose and give half now and the other half 1 hour later. You can modify the amount and the timing if needed. On insulin pumps, there are 3 bolus options. The first is the standard bolus, which is what we typically use. The second is an extended bolus, where the dose is given slowly over a set number of hours. The third is combination bolus, where some of the bolus is delivered immediately and the rest is given continuously like an extended bolus. If you have a hybrid closed-loop system, your insulin pump may not have these bolus options. Also, it is constantly getting information from your continuous glucose sensor, and its algorithm may already be working on fixing the blood sugar pattern. So, if you're on a closed-loop system, talk to your diabetes care team to see what options you have and what would work best. Just remember that whatever method you use, make sure to use it 2 to 3 times to see if it works. Your diabetes team can help you through all of this.
There is so much to think about. How do we keep track of it?
It does sound like a lot to keep track of, but you really don't need to think about any of this until there is a meal that gives you a different blood sugar response than usual. If you do come across such a meal, this next concept is useful as a starting point. I find it helpful to think about the blood sugar response after a meal in 3 parts. The blood sugar in the first 1 to 1.5 hours usually reflects timing of insulin. Blood sugar between 1.5 to 2 hours reflects the amount and glycemic index of carbs. Blood sugar pattern beyond 2 hours usually is affected by the meal composition, in other words, how much carbs, protein, and fat was there in the meal.
So let me make sure I understood how to approach this. First, I should see what foods or meals cause a different blood sugar pattern than others. Then, try to break down the blood sugar pattern by time after the meal. Look at what Mia's meal was made up of. Putting all of that together should help me decide what kind of dosing options will work best.
You got it. Your diabetes team should be able to help you a lot with this, but these steps will at least give you a starting point and hopefully make pizza look less daunting. One last thing I want to talk to both of you about is total carbs and net carbs and how to calculate insulin doses in that context. For that, we should go to the grocery store first to buy a couple of products with that information. Do you have time?
That would be great. I see that a lot with the Carb Smart and Carb Balance foods. I have time to go over it.
I have time too. This is important. I would love to hear this.
We hope this gave you a better understanding of how foods like pizza cause different patterns in blood sugars and why, and also options on how to dose for them.
Are there any foods or meals that have caused different patterns in your sugars? Do you have any tips or tricks that work for you that you would like to share? Let us know in the comments.
Please remember that this is for informational purposes only and is not meant to replace your doctor or care team.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you get updated when we upload the next video about total and net carbs. Check out our other videos about free foods, why we carb count, and many other topics. Let us know what else you would like to hear about. Thanks for watching.